Hi, I'm Cameron McKenzie. I'm the editor-in-chief over at theserverside.com, and I wanted to show you how to install Maven, get some Maven builds going, and even maybe run some code coverage tests using Jacoco. So the first step in installing Maven is just doing the download. I've got the Apache Maven 3.5 zip file here, which will be great for Windows. You'll notice that's just found at maven.apache.org/download. I've actually already downloaded that file. It's not a huge file. If I go into my downloads folder, you'll see it right there, Apache Maven 353. And I've actually unzipped that file, and I've put it all into a folder called _Maven. You can see there's that bin directory with the all-important mvn command inside of it. And so whenever I extract this file, and I like to rename the folder to which it's extracted to _Maven, and then just move that over to my C drive. You know, you can see I've done something similar with Git and JDK 1.8. Note JDK 1.8 and a configured Java home system variable is required for Maven to run. And also when you install Maven, there's a couple of system variables you need to configure for that as well. So that's my next step. I'm going to go and configure some system variables. I do that through the System Control Panel applet and move to Environment Variables. There you see Java Home configured. I need to set up Maven Home, and that just becomes the folder to which I unzipped Maven and put it onto my local file system. So that's C_Maven. There's actually another one called M2 Home. It's kind of funny. I think there were some backwards compatibility issues when Maven 2 came out, so you're supposed to set both of those. So M2 Home is set. And then you also want to go down to your path variable, and you want to add the bin directory of Maven to your path variable as well. And so you see there's C:\maven/bin, and that will make the always important mvn command available anywhere on my local operating system. And so with that done, I'm going to go into this folder I've created named projects, and in that folder I've got a folder called simple app. I've also got one for rock paper scissors that we'll work on in a moment. But I'm going to right click in this directory, say git bash here. Make sure you bring up a new, you can use a command prompt. I've got a bash shell emulator here. Make sure you start up a new one because system variables only get read the first time one of these programs starts. And I want to go Maven version and just make sure that indeed Apache Maven is installed. And you can see it's reporting that 3.53 is installed, and it's providing me the correct Maven home. So that's fantastic. The other thing you can do when you've got Maven set up is create a basic project. Maven expects files and folders to go into certain locations. The different mechanism it has for creating Maven projects is known as an archetype. And so what I want to do is just create a basic Java project using a Maven archetype. And so I just type Maven archetype:generate. Now as I do this, it'll say, you know what, there's a million different types of projects that are available. In fact, it returns a list of 2,157. It says, which one do you want? Well, you can actually type in the name if you know the name of the one you want. I want the Maven simple archetype, the Maven-archetype-simple. We'll say, okay, I'll search for that, and it only finds one. I'll say, okay, number 1 is what I want, and then it says, okay, there's a couple of values that it wants. It wants a group ID, it wants an artifact ID, I'll call it my app, a version, I'll call it 1.0, and the package, again, I'll make it the same as the group ID. It asks me if I indeed want to do this, and I say, yeah, indeed I do. And when I do that, you can see that it creates this new folder based on the artifact ID, I think it was called My App, and the structure is this. There's a source folder, there's a folder for tests, a folder for your main code. Underneath main, we've got a folder called Java, and then the package that we created, and then it's got a little app.java file. There's not much going on in there, just a little hello world file. And it also has a test file as well, and that corresponding test file, it's just got one little unit test that can prove that things are working. It just asserts that true is true, which will always be true. But it's a good way to just verify your environment. And how do you verify your environment? Well, you can build it, and you build it using a POM file and the MVN utility. A POM file is the core of your Maven configuration. It describes the project. Now, it starts off and oh boy, there's a lot of information here, and I'd say probably a lot of this is superfluous. I don't think we need the reporting. I don't think we need the build. I don't even think we need those properties there, although we definitely need the dependencies. We probably don't even need the description and the URL either. And I think all of these XML things are superfluous as well. That's a nice, less bloated Maven file, but it basically just describes, okay, what's the artifact ID, what version are we on, what's the package name that we're using, and also any dependencies. And here you see we're dependent on JUnit. And so I'm going to save that, and then I'm just going to build the project. And so I'm going to go here to my git bash, and I'll say Maven compile test and package. Maven will now read that POM file. It'll look at my code. It'll run any unit tests, and notice that there probably should have been one test that was run because we had that one test true. It didn't fail, so that's good. And you notice we also now have this target folder, and the results of your compilation goes into this target folder. And you'll see it's actually created a jar file called my app 1.0. That was the version that we provided, and that was the artifact ID we provided. And that's packaged all of that up as a jar file. And so that's sort of the way you can run tests, build your application, and even package your application in a deployment artifact. Now I wanted to actually play around with a Java code coverage tool, and I've got a little rock, paper, scissors application that, well, I host that up over on my GitHub site, github/Cameron McKenzie. It's this rock, paper, scissors repository right there. You can download it if you're really interested, but I just wanted to demonstrate it right here. You notice I've got 5 Java classes in there. Under my test folder I've got 2 tests. Probably don't have the best code coverage here. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Maven to run some Jacoco tests. And in order to do that, what you do is you find the POM file of this project. So here I am in the Rochambeau folder, the rock, paper, scissors folder. I'm going to edit this with Notepad, and it's a simple POM file as well. And I'm going to say, when I build this application, I want Maven to download the Jacoco plugin and then run the Jacoco agent and report back to me about code coverage. And to do something like that, you have to tell the pom.xml file about the plugin that you want to use. Now, I don't know if this is complicated. Here it says we want to use the org.jacoco group ID plugin that is specifically the Jacoco Maven plugin. That's the name of the plugin there. The latest version is 0.081, and when it runs we want to prepare the Jacoco agent, and once it's prepared we want to run code coverage tests and have Jacoco generate a report. So again, I don't think that's rocket science, and to be quite honest with you, I just copied this off of some of the documentation on the internet. So while it may look complicated, it's not something that you have to write out by hand, although you may go in and configure that a little bit. And then to run this, all I do is I go back to my Maven command line. I run a Maven build, but I also call the Jacoco prepare agent and report goals, as they are called. You can see those are inside this tag called goals. And that should generate a Jacoco report, which will include things like the McCabe cyclomatic complexity and code coverage and things like that. And so in the folder where I have my POM file, I'm going to say git bash here. I'm going to say Maven. I'm going to go compile, test, and package. And as well, I'm going to ask Jacoco, or more specifically the Jacoco Maven plugin, to prepare the Jacoco agent. And I spelled Jacoco wrong there. I called it Javacoco. It's muscle memory. I do that every time. And then finally, after the agent is prepared, I would like Jacoco to generate a report. So Maven compile test package, Jacoco prepare agent, and Jacoco report. And spelling is important. And there we go. Now I'm going to run this. It's going to scan for projects. Maven download some of the required Jacoco libraries, and you'll also notice here when it runs it says, hey, we've analyzed the Rochambeau bundle and we looked at about 6 classes and we've generated some reports for you. And so now if I go into this Rochambeau project, I look into that target folder, you notice that there is a new folder in here called Jacoco. And this Jacoco has some report information, and it says here, you know what, you've had about 26% code coverage, which doesn't look too good in your application. And it goes in and it takes a look at each file. It says, hey, there's nothing for desktop game, there's nothing for the gesture enumeration, but you didn't do bad for the score class and you didn't do bad for the game summary class. And so it gives you an idea of what the code complexity is. I believe that's the McCabe score. So 7 different paths of execution, how many lines were covered, how many lines were missed, what percentage of lines are covered. And so this is a really interesting way to measure how well you're doing in testing. How many of the different routes through your code are there? That is your actual cyclomatic complexity number, that one there. And then given all of these different routes through your code, how much coverage do you have in your tests? And so that's also some really interesting feedback that you can get from a plugin like the Jacoco plugin. And as you can see, in less than 15 minutes, we've gone from an application that an environment that didn't have Maven in it at all to running fairly complicated Jacoco tests on your applications that may be hosted over there in GitHub. Anyways, that's it for now. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about installing Maven and running some code coverage tests, and hopefully your code coverage tests will be 100% in the future.